This video was made with the help of my lovely patrons. And now for a short shout into the void. So it's Christmas time again, and I was watching one of my go-to movies of the season, Elf, starring Will Ferrell and Zooey Deschanel. And there's this line that the late Bob Newhart says in the beginning of the film, which goes something like, "No human has ever set foot in Santa's workshop. That is, until about 30 years ago." And in case you haven't guessed it, that's our story. It was way back in 1968. And then, in a later scene, Buddy's dad's wife, Emily, says, "So, where exactly have you been for the past 30 years? And I just had to pause the movie there because you're telling me Will Ferrell was only 30 in this movie? But no, he wasn't. He was actually 36. But the screenwriter, David Berenbaum, makes it seem as though to a non-active viewer who's not going to do the math, that Buddy is around 30? But no, he's like deep into his 30s. If you do the math, Buddy is supposed to be 35, and Will Ferrell at the time was again 36. And as much as they like to keep insisting that he's 30 or vaguely 30-ish, it's very obvious that he's pushing 40. No offense to Will Ferrell, we all get old and that's fine. But when they said, "Where were you for the past 30 years?" I was like, this man is not 30. Stop trying to convince me that he's 30. And when we see his love interest, Zooey Deschanel, it's very obvious that she's much younger than him. How much younger? Well, in 2003, she was only 23. Meaning that they were 13 years apart when they had their on-screen kiss. And some people might say, who cares? It's just a movie. Not all actors are going to be the same age as the characters they play. Get over it. And to some extent, I agree with that. I don't expect perfect casting when it comes to ages. Age range can vary. But this casting choice of having a 10-year age gap or more between love interests doesn't exist in a vacuum. And I'd argue it's very deliberate in order to normalize this idea that this is what love looks like. Elf is just one example. There's also a Cinderella story where Hilary Duff was 16 and Chad Murray was 22 or 23, playing a high schooler. Then there's another Cinderella story with Selena Gomez, who was 16 and whose on-screen love interest was Drew Seeley, who was 26 at the time. Jason Earls in Hannah Montana was 29, playing a 16-year-old older brother. Even as a kid, I thought that one was weird, but I didn't know any better because everyone looked older to me when I was 12, so they got away with it.
You can't keep getting away with this!
Darren Burnett was 29, playing a high schooler, Paxton Hall Yoshida. Maitreyi Ramakrishnan was 19 in Never Have I Ever in 2020. Stop trying to convince me that these guys are in high school. And then in The Big Bang Theory, Leonard is supposed to be 27, the same age as his best friend Howard. Simon Helberg was actually 27 in season 1. But the actor Johnny Galecki was 32 in season 1, while Kaylee Cuoco, his love interest, was 21. In The Ranch, Ashton Kutcher's character Colt is supposed to be 33, but in season 1 he was actually 38. In the pilot he gets with a 21-year-old named Heather, and I can only assume he was aged down because that would be pretty creepy otherwise, but the actress who played Heather was actually 24 in that scene, meaning their real age gap was 14 years, but their on-screen age gap was 11 years. Then, going back to another Christmas classic, James Stewart was 38 in It's a Wonderful Life, and Donna Reed was 25. But they're supposed to be the same age, as seen in the beginning of the movie when they talk at the soda fountain. Or at least they're supposed to be close in age and not have a 13-year age gap. And as recently as 2025, 35-year-old Margot Robbie was paired alongside 49-year-old Colin Farrell in A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. And though there are examples of older women being cast as younger than they are, like Shirley Henderson in Harry Potter, who was 37, playing a 14-year-old Moaning Myrtle, who creepily looks at naked kids in the bathroom, and Stacey Dash in Clueless, who was 28 when playing a 16-year-old, these are more of an exception than a rule. But when it comes to romantic relationships on screen, it would be remiss to not point out how prevalent age gaps are and how utterly distracting they are as an audience member. Like, it's not subtle that Gomez is 16 and Celie is actually 26, or that Cuoco was 21, just like her character Penny, but Galecki was definitely not 27 like Leonard was supposed to be. Galecki was clearly a 32-year-old man, just like Farrell was clearly 36, and Deschanel was obviously too young for him at just 23 years old. And though yes, young 20-somethings are adults and can make their own choices, these are fictional stories written by men in which, in their minds, men in their mid-30s have more in common with a newly turned 20-year-old than women their own age. These stories are not organic, they are made with certain audiences in mind by majority white male writers who perpetuate an ageist culture against women, where it would be too unrealistic for a 30-something-year-old man to desire anyone who isn't at least a decade younger than them. That is sus to me, and it also again just takes me out of the viewing experience, even in something as silly as Elf. In the end, the message to girls and women is simple. Men get to be old in real life and on screen and even be cast as younger than they are, while for women, to be a romantic lead, they need to be, for the most part, under 30 and have to be close to their characters in universe age because casting anyone older would be unrealistic. And even for women over 30, they're still paired with men pushing 50. Men get to lie about their age on screen, play characters younger than they are, and face no repercussions. But women are shamed into lying about their age because they're so afraid of getting old and being perceived negatively due to age bias. And I don't think we should start casting older women to play younger women like how it is for men, but rather the point of bringing this up is to illustrate how much grace men get when it comes to aging, that they can play characters that are younger than they are versus how little grace we give aging women. Men can be any age and even lie that they're younger than they are and still be paired with a love interest in their 20s. And then that makes us as audience members internalize this idea that that's what a loving relationship looks like. An aging man who says they're younger than they are, and a barely 20-year-old woman. I think when it comes to age bias, a way to combat it would be to cast people in at least similar age ranges to the characters they're playing, so there's not like a 10-year power imbalance during the production and during the actual story because it's just so painfully obvious. And hopefully this would also help give older women more work, like 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, to be cast with men around their same age. And some might argue, well, they don't really have an age gap romance because in universe they're supposed to be close in age. Like I've had people comment on my Penny video that in the Big Bang Theory, Leonard and Penny don't have too big of an age gap because he's supposed to be in his late 20s and she's in her early 20s, so no harm, no foul. But that's exactly why it's so insidious to me. People can justify and further normalize casting young women next to much older men, like more than a decade older, because we can all just pretend and suspend our disbelief that they are the same age really. But sorry, I can't. I just can't imagine how icky it feels to be an actress in their early 20s being told to be the sex object or fantasy of someone in their 30s, and then it be justified because in the story they're actually only just 5 years older than you, not 10. And even though they do reveal in Elf, if you do the math, that Buddy is 35, basically the same age as Will Ferrell, it makes me wonder why didn't they cast a 30-year-old woman to be his love interest and not a young 23-year-old? Are we supposed to believe she's also 35? Why did they feel the need to point out Leonard is only in his 20s when he meets Penny to justify their age gap? Probably. And that's the real story, how filmmakers and writers need to justify these giant age gaps between actors because they too see how visibly older these men look next to these young women. It's not subtle. So they have to kind of trick the audience into believing that they're closer in age with the girls they're courting. He's not in his 20s or even 30s, he's a teen just like you. And you know, it works. It did go over my head a lot as a tween and teenager because anyone older than you when you're 13 or even 19 or 20 just seems old. So seeing another Cinderella story or Silver Linings Playbook or Yes Men, it wasn't immediately obvious to me that Carrie or Cooper were so much older than their female counterparts, but now as someone who is 30, it baffles me how old they were compared to the female leads. And even Audrey Hepburn, as she aged, continued to be paired with older men, and that all started when she was in her early 20s. To be a female love interest, you can't be in your 30s. We hear you loud and clear. But men, you can be any age and still play a high schooler or love interest to a 20-year-old. Lucky you. And we wonder why Leo serially dates 20-year-olds when that's the dominant image we're bombarded with since childhood and one that the film industry churns out and upholds. That's not to give him any leeway, but rather that's what this age gap culture produces and normalizes. Men who feel entitled to young women and who have internalized that this is what love is. It empowers men and disempowers women, who then must constantly feel insecure about aging, about not being young enough, who feel the need to lie about their age as they get older because they don't want to be seen as an old hag just because they're not 25 anymore. Kristen Stewart actually turned down a role in the movie Focus because of the age gap she'd have with Will Smith. He was 47 at the time and she was 25 in 2015 when the film came out. Eventually, Margot Robbie got the role, and she was also 25 at the time. According to Variety, Kristen Stewart recently fell out of the con artist comedy Focus after Will Smith replaced Ben Affleck as the male lead. She was nagged by the feeling that the age gap was going to be too large. For the record, Smith is a mere 4 years older than the 40-year-old Affleck. So maybe she left for other reasons, but still, that's a pretty big gap. And I think it's something we're reckoning with more and more. The last time I remember talking about this was with Riverdale and the cast all being out of high school in their late teens and early 20s, but still playing teenagers. But honestly, looking back, I'd prefer that to casting actual teenagers, especially in a show that in season 1 had a student-teacher relationship. And they were still pretty young. The leads were 19 and 20 years old. But at least they were all around the same ages as each other, and I take that over literal children who then grow up to be adultified and preyed upon by adult fans and even co-stars, like the cast of Stranger Things. That just sucks, and Millie Bobby Brown has even talked about how hard it's been growing up under the microscope that is obsessed with her age and how she looks as a young adult. So even though we've started having these conversations, we still have a long way to go when it comes to change. And sometimes when productions cast adults in high school roles, it's just to make it okay that they're pole dancing or doing things high school actors wouldn't be allowed to do, like in Euphoria. So that's why they cast adults. Not to protect kids, but to play out these adult fantasies but still pretend they're kids. But again, it's okay because they're not actually real teenagers. I don't know, it's weird, but I guess it's still a little bit better than casting actual children. And I can't help but think this is what happened to Mila Kunis in that 70s show. She actually had to lie about her age, saying she was 18 when she was only 14, so she could be on the show, as the show handled very mature themes. But come on, these adults had to know she was not 18. But they let it slide in order to have her be and act more adult and not get into trouble. They played along with the lie. She's not actually a kid. Don't worry, she's legal. And then at 14, she was paired with a 20-year-old Ashton Kutcher. But honestly, they both turned out to be pretty horrible people as adults. And speaking of casting minors in TV series, screw the parents who put their kids in the new Harry Potter show. Like, why would you do that? To conclude, I just can't get over the fact that male actors get to be continually fawned over by 20-year-olds, or that 50-year-olds get to be fawned over by 30-year-olds. Male actors are always having their ego stroked by someone much younger than them because it's not only a power play, it's this fantasy turned reality that no matter how old I get, young women will always find me hot and look up to me. And that means I never have to find someone my own age attractive or do any inner work to mature alongside my peers. No matter how old men are, their age is never a factor. They can play someone in their 20s when they're in their 30s, or they can be outwardly in their 30s, 40s, or 50s and still get with someone 2 decades younger than them on screen. They can even play a teenager at 26 and kiss a 16-year-old, but if you're a woman, your age does box you in, because no man would realistically want you past 25. Casting an age-appropriate actress next to a 30 or 40-year-old man just would be unrealistic. That's it for this one. And that's not to say that older women don't prey on younger men in Hollywood or in the film industry in general, because they do, and that's another thing that we could talk about. But I just wanted to point this out because this is a short little rant that I've had in me for a while, especially around Christmas time where I watch these Christmas movies, and it's just so obvious that there's a huge age gap between the male lead and their love interest. So yeah. That's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you liked it, please give it a like, leave a comment, check out the Patreon, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.